Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Shakira Refos, and I'm the Education Outreach Manager at the California Film Institute. You just enjoyed Bulado, and even though I think most of us might want to just take a moment to take a breath and just think about everything that you just saw and the beauty of the picture, we're going to go straight into a conversation with the director, Eché Janga. Eché, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thanks.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. In a non-COVID year, we would have loved to have the entire film team join us for a Q&A here in California. Your film is so beautiful, and I have a feeling that this might not be the last time that we'll be working with you. So we do hope to have you in California soon. For now, we'll just have a virtual Q&A here, some things I'm curious about. You've stated previously in an interview that you feel communications between people is 90% nonverbal in real life. In film, it's the most interesting medium to communicate, the language of human beings. The less dialogue for me, the stronger the image. So, and thinking about Bulado and like the strong visuals and the beautiful landscape of this incredible country, can you talk a little bit about who helped you put this vision together of the country? Talk a little bit about your film team and your own desires for what you want to share about the country of Curaçao.
Well, when I first went to Curaçao to meet my family who's living there, I was like, I think 14 or 15 years old. And the main thing that I noticed was that the way the men were behaving as a father. So you have to understand, my father was born there, raised there, and when he was like in his 20s, he came to the Netherlands, and there I was born. But I always felt that my father was like a bit different compared to other Dutch fathers in the way he raised me and he talked to me, and his movements and the way of speaking. And for me, it was the first time when I went to Curaçao that I saw like a lot of men were behaving like that, or moving like that. Because back in the days, you didn't have lots of black people in Haarlem, where I grew up, and especially not so many people from Curaçao. So that was actually, it's not the environment, it's not the landscape, but that was the first thing I noticed. Later on, of course, I enjoyed the white beaches and the sun and the fish and everything. But later, I start to discover the island from another side, like more of the countryside. And that was really interesting from a filmmaker's point of view, because it's a really rough terrain, rough and harsh nature, but there's beauty in it, and that was what kept in my mind, that you have this white sandy bounty like beaches, and in the countryside this is really rough with a lot of rocks and it's more like almost a violent sort of nature, which is beautiful. So even then I had a small camera, like a photo camera, and I made a lot of pictures. And when I went back there like 10 years later, and all the time I had those pictures in my house, that was Curaçao for me. The pictures, not the beaches, but the pictures of the countryside. So in that way, it was marked in my head, and that's how I first met Curaçao, actually, or discovered Curaçao.
I'm thinking about I'm from the Netherlands as well. My father was adopted from Curaçao. My mother is from Suriname. So, I grew up in a colonized space, kind of being from the Netherlands, but having parents who were from colonized places, just like you. And I remember the first time I visited Suriname, I was 9 years old. First time I visited Curaçao, I was also 9 years old. And I just remember like being from Nijmegen, where it's just like cobblestones, gray weather, and then visiting our, the homes of the birthplaces of my parents for the first time. I did not want to leave. And I think about those moments all the time. Can you just talk a little bit more about that experience, and then also how you pulled your film team together to translate, some of those experiences for you into this film?
Yeah. What was important for me was that I could work with local people from the island for this film, because it's not my country, it's not my culture. I only knew it from my father, and I didn't felt secure to go there as a Dutch person and make a film about their culture and about their country. So for me, it was important to find people who could work together with me to create this film. And there was one line producer. He's actually from Suriname, but he was based over there in Curaçao. And he helped me to find some local people, and also my nephew who lives there and knows a lot of people, because he's like an MC, so he knows a lot of people from the island. And he did find the main location for me, like the house where Kenza lives, and yeah, actually, because of him, my nephew, and this line producer, I could create a team of like 10 or 15 people, local people. And from Holland, I only took with me the director of photography and the sound, because on Curaçao there's not so much of a film industry. Actually, there's not. So there's no equipment. So those kind of stuff we needed to take with us. But to come back on the crew, I really did need a crew who was was tough, because it's bloody hot and there's almost nothing in equipment. So I was looking in the Netherlands. I was looking for a great DOP who could resist those kind of environment. So that was important for me. But I talked a lot with the local people and worked with them, and because I was thinking this film should be not only my film but also their film, and I've let them read the script. So they could tell me what was wrong, or what was wrong, what was right, and maybe when they read the script, they could tell me like, well, there are more beautiful caves over there, or this. So they helped to develop the script, actually, also not only the film itself but also the script. So that was a great opportunity for me, and I was really happy they were glad to help me out. And I think they love to help me, because for them it was maybe the first time a Dutch crew came to the island to make a film really about their culture, and not like another romantic film about a story on the white sands and the palm trees. So I got their respect, and even until today we have a WhatsApp group, and we shot it almost 2 years ago. But we have a WhatsApp group, and like 30 people inside this group, and even until today, every week now and then somebody from the island or from here is posting stuff, or congratulates each other, or we keep each other's inside, and that's really nice. It's like this family thing which always happens when you make a film still lives even 2 years after we shot the film. So this is great.
I think what I'm gathering, and of course what I understand from my own experience, is like this ancestral connection that you have to, of course, the story, to the narrative, and to the country itself, the space where it was filmed. How many times had you been back to Curaçao in between age 14 and when you started filming?
I think six times.
Six times or so?
Yeah, six.
And then how long did the process of filming last on location?
We've been there for more than 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, in those 3 months, as you're connecting, community with really like your art, your experience of the island through your eyes, but telling the story of a young girl from there, did anything change for you in the 3 months as you spent a little bit more time there? Did you feel anything different while you were there that you didn't expect when you arrived?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because if you are let's say if you are biracial, or you grew up in a country where your mother or your father's like I grew up in the Netherlands. My father was from there, but I never had a feeling. I had a feeling I had a connection with the island and the culture, but not really. And you heard all of the time, you heard these stories about people, they go to visit their motherland or their fatherland, and they come back and they say, well, I've changed, I feel a bit Indonesian, or I feel a bit part of me is now from Ghana. And I never really believed this, but when I was there for 3 months and I was filming in lots of places where my grandfather had worked, and even we shot in the house for elderly people. I don't know the English word, but where old people go when they're old. That's the place where Velho is the scene where Velho is put. So that house was where my grandfather died. So when I was there for 3 months, I've met a lot of people, more family, and I've changed. So I came back and I felt more connected with Curaçao, and that can happen, and that happened for me because it was such an intense period of time for me, because I met a lot of Jangas. And every Janga I met, we start to figure out this family tree and where we are connected. Yeah, and before you know, you feel connected with the island and the culture. And before you know, you start thinking about, maybe I should live there.
Yeah.
You never know. So, yeah, I had those thoughts. Yeah, still have actually, but I don't have the money yet.
I appreciate this film so much. We don't see a lot of films that these days that take the approach of viewing the world through a child's eyes. And what I think is really special about Kenza's wisdom is the fact that she understands where her father's respectability and the ideas he has about kind of like authority and falling in line, and you see how tortured he is, and she really she understands that. Is that something that you or perhaps your screenwriter experienced for yourselves, and is that where the story came from, or is this a story, a narrative that was from a dream, or more a different creative process?
Well, actually, the grandfather resembles my uncle. My uncle is like this free spirit, and he was really talking about the culture of Curaçao all the time. I lived with him for a year or so, and my father was really the opposite. He he never talked about the island. He never talked about the culture. He didn't want to teach me the language. And so my father resembles the father of Kenza in lots of ways. So he is more or less rejecting the culture, and that's because of when the Dutch Caribbean were colonized by the Netherlands. They weren't allowed to teach and to practice their own language and their own culture, and so like in a lot of colonized countries, the people are growing up without having this respect for themselves, and they teach that to their children. So one of those children was my father, and my father, for me, it almost looked like he hated the country. So that was really strange. And now when he's getting older, he starts loving the country so much. So this is something you see, you notice with a lot of people who are growing up in colonized countries where they weren't allowed back in the days to embrace their own culture, and because a lot of the culture is has themes from Africa, and So this, for me, it was when I was like 10 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old. I started to, I was a teenager, and I started to ramble and rage. I don't know, when you were young, you start you start fighting with your parents. So, and I was really curious about Curaçao. But the only Caribbean thing in the house was salsa music, because probably that was something he couldn't reject because it was so in his DNA. So salsa music I heard all the time, but I never heard him talk in Papiamento. He never showed me anything about the island. So for me, that was really natural that Kenza and her father were the same way with each other. So that's where it came from.
Yeah, I think those patterns resemble, like you said, a lot of my experience, and a lot of young Dutch people having questions about the Dutch Caribbean history and ancestry, and just having parents or grandparents who just like don't want to talk about it. And I think that some of that probably comes from trauma that they experience naturally through having to adjust from their home to the Netherlands, having to assimilate, and just like having to work and survive, and live under like racism and police violence, and like unequitable housing. And I'm just really grateful for you for bringing this story to us and giving us. It felt very healing for me as I was watching Kenza kind of go through her experience. Let's talk about the actress Tiara Richards. This is her first feature, but even more than that, this is her first role in a film, period. Yeah. How did you find her? And give us a little bit more about her as we close up. She did such a great job in the film.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of castings, and we have seen a lot of kids, but she was really interesting because she was so natural. But I have to say, in the beginning, it was really hard to bring out her energy, because in Curaçao, kids are raised to be really polite towards older people. So I gave her a scene where I told her, so you can shout and you can scream against your father. And her father was just like another actor. And she didn't dare to do that. But so I really had to push for a long time, because in the Netherlands, the children are really rude towards older people. So for me...
Dutch children.
Okay, Dutch children. But... so that was totally new for everybody, that she could shout and scream towards her father. But this is also not a typical Curaçao family. So That was really fun to provoke her and to make her shout, and in the end she loved it so much that there was a scene in the during the practice she started crying because I told her, so you got your diploma and your father told you you will get new shoes when you have an A grade. And she comes home, and this is the scene. She comes home, and she tells her father, "Well, look, Daddy, I have an A. Now can I get my new shoes? You promised me." And then the father tells her, "Yeah, well, I promised, but I don't have money, so it's not going to happen. So you studied for nothing, or not never for nothing, but you won't get the shoes." And then, of course, she just gets mad or disappointed. But I chose this scene, or I came up with the scene because I knew Tiara Richards herself wasn't a rich family. They were poor. I've seen it because I saw where she lived, and I did this because I knew she could relate to the scene. And so she started shouting and screaming. And in the end, she was crying. And when she was crying, everybody in the room was like totally silenced. And then I chose her for the film because I knew when I make a slight different changes in the script and make it more Tiara Richards' life, she could act better and could act from her heart, and that's what we did, and that worked really well. But she's a natural. She doesn't know yet, but she's really good. And I'm writing a new script at the moment, and I have a part for her, and then she will be like 14 years or so. But I really loved her. She was great. She really made the film.
Yeah, she was excellent. I'm happy to see that, to hear that you may continue working with her. And I look forward to hearing more about your new project and seeing it. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure connecting with you on a personal level, but also being able to share your work with students. I'm going to take this film to a number of different places and talk to American kids about the Dutch Caribbean. And you've given me a tool to be able to talk about these places where my heritage lies as well. And we don't have much content for in this very specific way through the eyes of a young person, and with the critique that we all should be having as how do we treat brilliant young kids and take them seriously. The respect that you have for Tiara and for her character is very visible in the film, and that's a very special thing. So on behalf of the Education Department, thank you for your work, and I appreciate your time in this Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and see you again.
All right.